The mission of the CU Japanese and Japanese American Community History Project is to document the real-life personal experiences of Japanese and Japanese American students, faculty, and staff from the first Japanese American student to the present day. As a university archives, we haven't traditionally done as good a job as we should of documenting underdocumented, underrepresented communities on campus. And Japanese Americans are part of that history. And so it's very important that we look more deeply at those stories and we really try to capture what it was like to be a student in that community here over the full range of CU history. We want to preserve photographs, diaries, letters, sound recordings, film, whatever the community is willing to share with us. We want that to be a part of the archive so that we can, from this day forward, tell a much richer history about Japanese and Japanese Americans on campus than we have to this day.
Colorado's particular history with regard to Japan and Japanese Americans is distinctive because you had Amachi, the camp here, you had people relocated from the coast, you had people in farming communities who were here from way before the war, and then after the war a lot of folks stayed in Denver, and then you had the governor, Ralph Carr, who was so accepting of Japanese Americans and Japanese immigrants at a time when other public officials simply weren't. Then the policy of the university, which seemed much more, as you were saying, lenient than the policies of other universities. So it seems a really historically important. And then of course the Navy Language School, which for my field, Japanese history, was transformative. I mean, it made the field.
Just the same way that we're now finding our voices and faces in mainstream pop culture, I think history needs to start acknowledging, where we've been.
It may not be so much that Japanese American history or Asian American history has been erased, but it's been buried.
Yeah.
Because what we see here is that by a conscious act of excavation, we can actually find out about the past. The past is there, we just have to look for it, we have to dig for it. And the extra effort involved is necessary because the archives have been a place that's recorded the history of powerful, rich, straight white men historically, and yet at the same time, all of these stories are, the threads are there, right? Just like little tiny bits that have to be pulled out and woven together.
And I take a lot of pride in this as a former editor of a Colorado yearbook. I'm like, this is so cool to know the significance of looking back at these as records of the time. So.
And you're also reaching sort of the tail end of the generation that can recall a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. So if you don't start now, you're going to lose a lot of that historical memory.
I see it a lot in some of the lower level classes where you have Asian American students who just are disconnected with their heritage, and they go to those classes to learn about their history and all about that, so it's a big impact on them.
I definitely identify with being disconnected from my culture because I grew up in a super white area and now I'm going to college in a super white area. So it is really cool to see but beyond that there are people like me here, which I think is really powerful.
When I started working here 6 years ago, I realized that there was a large Japanese American community in Colorado. And as I developed friendships and relationships within that community through my work, I started to realize that there were all these untold stories. Through that, I wanted to connect the Japanese American and Japanese communities of Colorado with our archives to document their contributions to our campus culture.
Speaking as both an archivist and a researcher, I can testify that there are a lot of institutional records at the University of Colorado Archives. However, there is almost no voice of the Japanese Americans who taught, staffed, or took courses at the University of Colorado. So almost no one has been in the records to find materials. And the last person that came through found that we had the most of almost all of the colleges and universities in Colorado that she looked at.
We, as archivists, fully understand how difficult it is for donors to think about giving away their personal items like their photographs or their diaries. And we'll work with the donors one-on-one at whatever their comfort level is. What we really need is just their stories in whatever form that takes. And it could be as simple as an oral history, or it could be as rich as a whole entire collection of photographs from their time at CU.
In 2000, the Archives started a U.S. Navy Japanese and Oriental Language School archival project to record the World War II effort to train U.S. Navy and Marine Corps officers at the University of Colorado. In doing so, we discovered that more than 75% of the language school sensei were Japanese American instructors. So in a way, we've already started capturing material on Japanese American faculty at the University of Colorado. However, that effort was not aimed at collecting material on Japanese American students during the war, and the story of Japanese and Japanese American faculty and staff and students, both before 1942 and after 1945, has yet to be collected. And in order to develop a story, we need sources that extend from 1910 to the present.
When I talk to students and I talk to the Japanese Student Association, they're surprised to discover that there's this history on the campus going back nearly 100 years of Japanese and Japanese Americans here at CU. And it's time to really bring that history to the forefront and create access to it for those students here today, and to add their history to that growing story.
We recognize that archives can be seen as places of power and privilege, this very rarefied place that most people don't want to step in the door of. And we want to change that. We want to reach out to people and say, we're here for you. We're a public record of your history. And so we break down those walls that keep people from feeling like the archive represents them, because it does.
We are so grateful to the CU Boulder Outreach Committee for supporting this project. Their help will allow us to hire interns, collect materials, and reach out to the community and bring their history into the archives to make it discoverable for future researchers and generations, and connect those histories with the current generation of Japanese and Japanese Americans on the campus, and help those students understand that they're part of a bigger legacy.
My name is Mikio Suzuki. When I came to Boulder, I really didn't know what to expect. I was 11, and I began at Mapleton Grammar School, and everybody was very, very nice to me. To the best of my knowledge, I didn't run into any prejudice. I thought that Boulder was a very good place for a child to grow up in, and it's kind of sad when we had to leave.
My name is Alan Michio Okamoto. Not only my father, but all of the Niseis, and not only just the Navy Language School student instructors, but all the Japanese American Niseis were such incredibly strong, dedicated, hardworking people that something like the war didn't deter them. I mean, it would be successes anyway. In my opinion, and from what my father told me, the University of Colorado bent over backwards to help the instructors. I thought that if there was a fight, it would be with the United States government.
My full name is Ari Inoue. When you think that these brilliant students who later became scholars and diplomats and really made a mark in society because of the language and its own very positive results. And to me, that's so gratifying that even if my part was very small, which it was, it's given me a lot of satisfaction.